The trilogy is at an end, and though I'm sad to see it finished, I won't cry. The final Phoenix Wright game, Trials and Tribulations, is here, and it has very big shoes to fill, and a lot of expectations. The first game was a unique spin on the visual novel detective game. The second amplified the storytelling with new twists and characters, so let's see if the last game, Trials and Tribulations, is worth it. Trials and Tribulations was released in 2004 on the Game Boy Advance, making 2 years between Part 2 and 3. Of course, this was only in Japan, but it was later remade for the Nintendo DS and released in 2007 in America, but 2008 where I live. Exactly like the second game, this is just a straight port. There are no new cases or gameplay elements, though some have been adjusted to fit with the DS screen and controls. Sticking with what is the same, the gameplay has not really been touched since the first game. You play as Phoenix, a murder happens and you must investigate it by talking to people, finding clues, and breaking psych-locks. That's where you use evidence to get people to reveal their deep dark secrets. Once you have all that evidence, you will enter the courtroom to do battle against the prosecutor by finding contradictions in witness testimony. It was satisfying when I played the first game, and it's still satisfying now. So then what has changed between games? Well, to start, we don't play as Phoenix in the very first trial. As it's the introduction trial and they have to teach you how to play the actual game, making Phoenix not know how to do it for the third time is kind of silly. He's a pro now, right? Instead, we get to play as Mia Fey. Oh, that was such a pleasant surprise. This is her second ever case, so she's still pretty rusty, but it does make me think. What do lawyers in this universe actually learn, as she needs to be told literally everything just like Phoenix does? What's the point of years of law school if they don't know what evidence is? Anyway, this opening case is fantastic and the best intro case yet. In it, you are defending Phoenix Wright. Long before he finished law school, he was involved with a murder. Oh boy, such a cool case. After that case, we play as Phoenix once again, and much like the second game, there are longer story intros to introduce characters and the situation that we're in. The rest of the cases here are pretty interesting. The second is about a master thief, so not a murder, which is a nice change of pace, and I like the twist in this case, but don't worry, I won't spoil them here. The next case is a murder in a restaurant, and the accused is Maggie from the second game. But it is a bit of a strange case because it is 6 months old, and we represented her the first time, and she was found guilty. Uh-oh. Why don't we have any memory of that? Well, we quickly learn that somebody has been impersonating Phoenix, so a mistrial was awarded, and we get to represent her for the real trial. Also, fun fact, this case was meant to be in the second game, but due to time and other constraints, it was eventually cut. But as it was mostly done, they remade it for this game. It's probably the weakest case of the game in my opinion because the twists aren't that good, but I did really like the fake Phoenix. He was pretty fun. Now the last two cases are very heavily linked. We get to play as Mia Fey again in her first ever trial. For story reasons, we couldn't actually play as the first one in the intro, so you know, that's a thing. And although it is her first trial, she doesn't have to do the dumb tutorial stuff, so I guess she knows evidence now, but she didn't know evidence in her second trial. It's so dumb. This case isn't terribly long either, it's more of a setup for the final case. And oh boy, that final case is chef's kiss. Holy cow, it is probably the best case in the entire trilogy. It starts with Phoenix, Maya, and Pearls, who was a main character in the second game, and I didn't really talk about her, and someone called me out on that, so my bad. But she is this sweet and innocent 8-year-old, or maybe she's 9 now, that fawns over Maya and Phoenix, and they must be in love because they live and work together, and they're a boy and a girl. And she is just great and wholesome and so adorable, and I just absolutely love her. Anyway, Maya goes to this temple on a mountain in order to do some spirit training. Another lady, Elise, who is a children's book author, is also there getting inspiration. And as this is a Phoenix Wright game, somebody gets murdered. And now Maya is trapped across the gorge, Phoenix is nearly taken out, and Pearls has gone missing. Oh my god, what a night. I really don't want to say much about this case beyond this point because anything I say will spoil it for you and you have to go into this completely blind. Just know that this final case is a culmination of everything that came before it, and the twists and familiar faces make it one epic conclusion. On another note, keeping with tradition, you may have noticed the new rival prosecutor is here, and you have to fight him. This time it is Godot, and I liked him from the very first moment he came on screen. He is a calm, smooth-talking man, and his look is just insane, like he has this weird Cyclops visor on, it's so cool. His shtick is that he uses strange metaphors and drinks a lot of coffee, even taking the time to slowly drink before answering questions just to keep you in suspense. This is much better than Von Karma's whip any day. His story is also shrouded in mystery, a new prosecutor that no one's really ever heard about, and he has a severe grudge against Phoenix. But why? Who is he? Well, I'm not gonna tell you, but just so you know, by the time I finish the game and you find out the big mysteries, I liked him even more. Well, it's no secret that the Phoenix Wright games have had pretty excellent music, and you know what brings Godot's character to life? His theme song. Oh man, that slow jazz song is just incredible. It really fits him to a T, and it's funny because he is so high on caffeine. How can he be such a calm and slow person? It's so silly, but it works so well. I was instantly in love with the tune. In fact, most of the tunes in this game is just really great. The new court theme is so grandiose, but I don't think it really fits this game at the start. When you first play as Mia and you're going through the first tutorial case and you're learning about evidence, this grandiose theme is playing in the background, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't really fit. But by the time you get to the final case, that grand theme fits perfectly. So maybe they wrote the song with that case in mind and just had to put it for the entire game. The new objection and pursuit themes are also really good. They have lots of energy and I was sold on them pretty fast. They're a little video gamey though, but that's not a bad thing. Unlike Godot, I wasn't hyped on coffee this time either, so I wasn't bouncing off the walls, but I was having a good time. Except for that final case, I was getting hyped in that one, but I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, I'm gonna have to make another video talking about the Phoenix Wright spoilers. Alright, I'm gonna do it. With all that being said, there are a few little negatives to this game. The first is that the investigation sections are still pretty drawn out, and most of them are a little bit guesswork where you have to go and who you have to talk to and what you have to do next. That has been a problem since the very first game, and whilst I can excuse the first game because it is the first, this is the third game, and yet they still haven't got that down pat. I guess this is just the approach they wanted to take. Most of the cases aren't strictly linear. There's plenty of times where you'll have choices of who you want to talk to next or different areas that you can explore next. But because of that, sometimes you don't know where to go next. At one point, I got pretty annoyed because there normally is 4 talking points to a person. After those 4 points, sometimes you can give evidence to continue the story and get more information. And even rarely after that, after presenting evidence, you can be given a new talking point, or in the case of if you've already got 4, one of them disappears and gets replaced with one that you haven't read yet. And I missed that because it's a little checkmark in a box and it was the top one and I didn't realize that it was a new talking point, so I just left and I was wandering around trying to figure out what to do next. And I was at the point where this is the very last thing I needed to do in order to progress the story to the next part. So I was like wandering around going, what the hell am I supposed to be doing or talking to? I started presenting evidence to every single person until I finally noticed that that little check mark wasn't there. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of dumb. Now, I guess that is on me a little bit, but that's just some poor game design as well. The other tiny little negative is that this game builds upon the past 2, which is no surprise, but the way they talk about the past games is usually quite secretive in order to not reveal the actual plot of the other games in case you haven't played them. So when they reference past events, they try and keep the culprits and some of the story obscured in order to keep it fresh if you haven't played it. And while that's a nice effort, it's really dumb because then the actual present day story feels a little bit jank because they refuse to talk about the actual murderer. In the final case, they do let this slide a little bit more, which is good for that case, but it could have gone a little bit further in order to connect it up a little bit better and just have a general grander story at the end. And I get why they did this, but it just frustrates me that this limitation was put in place just for spoiler reasons when it shouldn't have been there. Just spoil it. Who cares? If people are playing the third game in a trilogy first, then that's on them for not getting the full story up until this point. You know, that's not my fault. In my opinion, Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations is worth it. The journey from rookie to pro was such an amazing experience to go on. While some cases are better than others, the overall quality of this game is incredible. The sprite work, the backgrounds, the humor, the twists, the music, and most importantly, the characters are all incredible. While I did have some small negatives, it is still the best game in the trilogy, but it does rely on the whole thing in order to be the best. As a first game, it still will be great, but I don't think it will hit as hard without the characters and their journeys from the first 2 games. And the first 2 games are not bad at all, but unlike me more than 10 years ago, you should definitely stick to the series because it only gets better as each game goes on. So my Phoenix Wright marathon is not quite over yet. I'll have a look at the movie, and I'm currently watching the anime as well, which has been pretty fun, but those videos will come later because, you know, life, I'm really slow at uploading. Also, one day I'll have to play those spin-off games. And that's the end of the trilogy, so we have to say goodbye to Phoenix, and that makes me a little sad. And as the games have taught me, the only time a lawyer can cry is when it's all over. So guys, tell me what you thought about Trials and Tribulations. Did you like it? Did you hate it? And which was your favorite case in the entire trilogy? Mine is still case 4 from the first game, and then it's case 5 from this game because, oh man, that case 4 was just so good, and maybe it was just the overhyped from the coffee talking, I don't know, but I just had so much fun there, and I realized that Ace Attorney was such a great series. But then case 5, oh, it's so good. Oh, it's really hard to pick between the 2, but I'll keep it like that. But tell me which one is your favorite. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!